Kia ora koutou, Marky here. So this is just a quick one about music because I've just recorded another video about music. Before I lose my voice, I just wanted to share this one really. This is my home studio. Just lately I've preferred to shoot things from what I call my mobile studio, where you get a nice view of the sea or a forest or something. So my home studio, unfortunately, there was a mark in the wall. I'll show you this. Mark in the wall. And I filled it, and then I thought I could colour match it. As I used to be so good at colour matching, I could do it, you know, just perfectly. And I think I probably still am when it comes to like a small area. So I used to do like craft and miniature modelling and stuff like that, and I could, you know, something small like an ornament was broken. I could repair it and colour match it like perfectly. Because it's easier to mix. So this is a tangent already, I haven't even started, but that's the nature of this channel. If you don't like tangents and kind of little stories within stories, then this ain't the place for you, my friend. Find another video. When it's a small amount, you can mix the amount of paint. When it's a big amount, it's just more difficult to do, really. And then I actually did the proper thing and got what are they called? Those little kind of colour swatches things. Are they called colour swatches? They're probably called colour swatches. And got the right colour, but when I came to paint it, it wasn't the right colour. It was that lighter colour. So then I tried to blend it with another one and came out with that darker colour, and then I did a god-awful mess of it, really. So I need to repaint the whole wall, which is annoying. Now, when I do Zoom calls and stuff like that, it doesn't show. I can get away with it. But when I do videos, and there's nowhere else in the house, really, where I can do videos where there's... even here is not great, actually. On a Zoom call, what I can do is I lose that cupboard door to the right. That gets cut out somehow, and then the corner gets cut out as well. So it's just me with a white wall. Yeah, so it's like that, isn't it, on a Zoom call? It's come closer. So I could but with when I try and film where I use my iPhone, it's much harder. So it'll be fine when I get that wall painted. I'll just go like that. I hold the phone really close. Anyway, that's by the by. That you don't want to know about my walls, do you? So I just done a video about music, and I was looking at different songs by different artists that speak to being ripped off by managers, and that was in the, you know, I did that off the back of recent news about Sean Combs, the Diddy Man. It's funny because Diddy Man to me means Ken Dodd, but that's showing my age. If you're not from the UK and not of my generation, you probably won't even know who Ken Dodd is. Ken Dodd and the Diddy Men. But there we go. We won't go into Ken Dodd and the Diddy Men. But so I wanted to talk about artists who have produced punk songs who aren't generally considered to be punk bands or punk artists. And I've kind of thought of a few. And I'm very interested to know whether you can think of some more. Okay, so I'm just going to go through them. I'm not going to play you stuff because it involves technical stuff and I can't do all that. Just talk about them a little bit, really. I'm not an expert on music. I love my music. I like punk, and I like all forms of rock, really. I like folk rock, I like prog rock, I like punk, I like goth, I like a bit of what's it called, new wave. I was going to say new age then, that's not right, is it? New age music. Yeah, well, I don't mind new age music to chill to, you know, to go to sleep to or something like that. No, new wave. I'm more new wave than new age. Yeah, I'm going to do specific songs first, and then I'm going to talk more generally about some bands that I think are more punky. So most of these songs are in the heavy rock genre, heavy metal, heavy rock genre. Now, this is the interesting thing, really, is that, you know, to me, I kind of grew up with heavy rock, and then I got introduced to the Sex Pistols. And to me, it was just the same, you know. So I was listening to Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and stuff like that. And then somebody gave me a copy, like back in the day when people would give you a tape. Again, you've got to be of that generation, but it was great when you could do that, because you just make a tape for somebody. They didn't cost much. You could give somebody a tape, or you give somebody a blank tape, and they'd have an album that you wanted. And you can never afford these things; it's always so bloody expensive. and they would make you a tape of it. And of course, obviously, it's not good because the artist doesn't get recognised. But ultimately, ended up getting introduced to an artist, hooked on their stuff, and ended up buying their records anyway, or buying cassettes, you know, properly made cassettes, not home taped ones, or you don't going to see them in concert. So I don't feel any guilt about that. But so basically punk and heavy rock, heavy metal, it was all I knew it's different, there's differences, but it was, you know, one was as good as the other as far as I was concerned, in my youth and now, and I liked them equally. And then when goth stuff came out, I liked that equally as well. So and now I've gotten more into, you know, then I got more into non-rock genres. Like I like folk, I like classical now as well. But what I'm trying to say in a very verbose way, I guess, is I always find it interesting when I've met people that say they love punk but they don't like heavy metal, or they love heavy metal but they don't like punk. And I'm thinking, well, what's the difference? Yes, there is a difference. How would I define it? I like defining things. Lots of people say, oh, it doesn't matter. Why is it important? You know, because it's fun. I like putting things in boxes. You shouldn't put things in boxes. Yes, and you put things in boxes if you do it for fun, if you find that entertaining. So, broadly, punk was simpler than heavy rock. It was in many ways a return to kind of 1950 rock and roll. There are lots of 1950s rock and roll motifs within heavy rock, like a lot of the Sex Pistols, like the guitar solos and stuff. They were very kind of Chuck Berry or whatever. It was simpler. Songs were often shorter. It was had more of a do-it-yourself working class attitude. Not to say that everybody that was big in punk was working class. A lot of people that were going to punk were, you know, middle class and quite well-to-do, quite well-educated. But the attitude was middle class. Lyrically, often it was more about real-life issues, like politics, or quite anecdotal stuff. It was stuff about, you know, just normal life as a young person. Often there's very much a young, both genres have very much a youth kind of focus. So very much kind of can do, fewer chords, simpler, often faster. Although metal started to kind of catch up and kind of speed metal came back. So I think punk has always kept heavy metal on its and heavy rock on its toes. It's always been a good thing for heavy rock and heavy metal. I think as well, punk was a response to things like progressive rock. I'm not going to define progressive rock because it'd take too long, but progressive rock, often virtuoso musicians, often very long compositions, double albums, long solos, very indulgent. Concepts, ideas, very intellectual, very heady. Great, I like that as well. But punk was kind of like a reaction against that, I think, in lots of ways. You know, simple, short, simple, angry, return to rock and roll, going back to the fundamentals of rock and roll, really, in lots of ways. But there's lots of areas where they're blurred in the middle, and of course there are times in the history of music where there were big comings together of the two genres, so heavy metal and rock. So speed metal, you know, heavy metal started to get faster after punk, and you also had the new wave of heavy metal, and speed metal, you know, came about after punk as a reaction to punk. Grunge was a more recent kind of blending of punk and heavy metal, but thrash metal, when it came out, was very much the same as well. So thrash metal had the speed of punk. There were a lot of bands, like hardcore punk bands and anarcho punk bands that were very, very fast, very, very heavier and faster than heavy metal bands. And they influenced, so the big, you know, when thrash came out with bands like Anthrax, Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, big punk influence, and a lot of these bands have done punk covers, but you know, they've always been crossovers, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But a couple of songs that I recommend you check out, where I think it's generally a non-punk artist. So look and image is very much very is a key difference as well between punk and heavy metal. So heavy metal usually had long hair. The one thing that was in common were things like studs and leather. That was something common to both. But then heavy metal kind of went in different. So when hair metal came out, and hair metal was very glam, and you know, everyone was trying to look pretty. Punks, generally speaking, don't try and look pretty. They try and look the opposite. So first song to look up, "Running Free" by Iron Maiden. This is I can't remember if it was their first or second album, but it was before the Brucey bonus came along, and it was Paul Di'Anno, who sadly died recently. And Paul Di'Anno is an artist who's moved between sort of heavy rock and punk quite a bit, which is interesting. So "Running Free," and there's a few others in those first two Iron Maiden albums. Interestingly, those first two Iron Maiden albums are also quite proggy. So it's interesting. People often say that prog and punk are opposites, and they kind of are, but they also blend. So I know that the Stranglers are often sometimes referred to as Punk Floyd, aren't they? And then you've got the literal marriage of Toyah, Princess of Punk, as she was known, with Robert Fripp, who's the king of prog from King Crimson, literally king. So it's interesting, you know, how the yin and the yang, you know, they do seem to be yin and yang, don't they, in many ways. So then a really interesting one, if you don't know it, is "Sheer Heart Attack" by Queen. Now, "Sheer Heart Attack" by Queen is not on their Sheer Heart Attack album. If you're looking for it, they've got an album called Sheer Heart Attack, but the song "Sheer Heart Attack" isn't on the album. The song, oh god, what album is it on? I can't remember what it's bloody called. Tell me in the comments if you know what the album's called. So it's a cracking album. Now I believe it's a Roger Taylor song, and I believe it's him playing guitar on it, and it's a punk song. Very fast, very thrashy, and the only thing that doesn't sound punk really is Freddie's lyrics, Freddie's singing. You know, I can't really imagine Freddie singing punk. You know, his singing is wonderful as always, but he didn't quite, you know, replicate the kind of punk thing that was going on. And I believe the Sex Pistols were in the next studio when they were recording that, and John Lydon, Johnny Rotten, and Sid Vicious. It was during that period. Kind of had various meetings with members of Queen. Apparently Johnny Rotten, John Lydon, I think, they got on quite well. Sid Vicious, I think he was just quite rude to them and quite shitty. But check that out. It's a bloody good song. And it was, yeah, Roger Taylor had been listening to a bit of punk and wanted to have a go, you know. Brilliant, excellent song. And then "Boys Don't Cry" by The Cure. Now, The Cure would generally be described as a post-punk song. A post-punk band. That's a label that's been used for lots of these bands. Goth band as well. You could call them lots of things, couldn't you? Great band. Not my favourite of the gothic genre. I don't always find them as accessible as some of the others. But I do like them, and I do really respect the songwriting. So "Boys Don't Cry," which I think was from their first album, and if you listen to the lyrical theme, which is very much about kind of boy and girl, you know, young guy loses his girlfriend because he did something stupid. You know, it's one of the many things, you know, very consistent with a kind of punk theme, and the riffs on there, the guitar work. It's not a particularly kind of heavy song. So that's the interesting thing about punk as well, and the difference between punk and heavy metal is some punk, you know, features distorted guitar, power chords, you know, all the things you'd associate with heavy metal and heavy rock, that Kerrang guitar sound, but not all of it does. So you can have like punk artists like Hazel O'Connor, where, you know, she's using stuff like saxophones and stuff like that, and it's punk, but it's not heavy punk. So punk is, I think, in a way is like a broader genre than heavy metal. But this if the guitars were a bit more heavy, on Boys Don't Cry. It would remind me a little bit of the kind of song and the kind of lyrics of oh, what are they bloody called? What was the band Fergal Sharkey was in? What was the song called? Teenage Kicks. It could have been a song by them, I think. If you heavied it up just a little bit, and maybe a different singer, because Robert Smith doesn't sound like a punk vocalist. He always sounds like he's about to burst into tears. So a punk's usually a bit more angry. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 specific songs I'd like to point you in the direction of. I won't put links to them because I never know how that works with copyright and stuff like that. But then 2 bands, 2 heavy metal bands, one of which I've mentioned already, which I think would be worth a listen to, with that I think were very punky, had more of a punk vibe to them than a lot of other heavy bands. And the first one is Twisted Sister. Twisted Sister are great. If you're one of, if you're a little bit younger and you're into heavy metal rather than kind of, it's interesting because what bands like Twisted Sister and stuff, we always used to call them heavy metal. Now people probably rebrand them as heavy rock. And heavy metal today seems to be all about how fast you can make the drums, even if that's faked. Which I don't like. I don't like that. Somebody described it as like typewriter drumming. Sounds like a typing pool. I don't like that. I don't know why people like that. People have got into that, and so heavy metal is and death growls and typewriter drumming seem to be the defining elements of heavy metal these days. But back in my day when I were a lad, a lot of stuff that we called it heavy metal. It was all heavy metal as far as we were concerned. And Twisted Sister were heavy metal. Now Twisted Sister probably kind of a bit influenced by Kiss, so they've got this glam rock kind of thing going on. But they took it to, they didn't take it to an extreme. That's not fair. They took it with a pinch of salt. That's a better way of saying it. So they kind of performed in drag, but in kind of ridiculous, over the top drag. And a lot of their songs were very humorous. They did, a lot of their music videos were humorous. The singer, Dee Schneider, fantastic voice. And they're more associated with kind of glam metal, because they dressed up and, they kind of followed on in the wake of Kiss. Wasp were another band that were really, really good, I think. But that's by the by. Listen to their first album, and you'll hear a lot of punk in that. I like the areas where punk and metal blur. And then Anthrax. So I talked earlier about I don't think I used the term the Big Four. But people use the term Big Four. That's where I was talking about Anthrax, Metallica, Megadeth, and Slayer. There was another band called Exciter that I really liked. They were very punky as well. They were good. They're good. They're very punky. But Anthrax, and where I say Anthrax are punky, and listen to their earlier stuff. Where you'll hear the punk in Anthrax, and they're not massively punk, but there's two things really that make them punk. One is the bass, and if you compare their bass playing to the other 3 of the Big Four bands, it's very different. It's much more of a punk style bass. And the backing vocals, because the backing vocals on Anthrax are a bit like, I don't know if anyone's showing my age again here. If anyone remembers Monty Python and the Gumbies, so the Gumbies were these guys with what we used to call tank tops. Tank top means something different these days. God, I'm getting so fucking old. A tank top was like a jumper with no arms on. And often they were grey and kind of, patterned, quite old, these old-fashioned things. They were called tank tops. I don't know why they were called tank tops. But the Gumbies used to wear those, and they used to have these knotted hankies on their heads. And they used to talk like that. And they used to do announcements and things. So they go, "And now, a sketch about..." And that was the Gumbies. So you know Monty Python, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The backing vocals for a lot of Anthrax, because they had a very melodic singer. It's Joey Belladonna, I think. Who you know, it's quite full. I don't know if I'm not good at musical terms. I'm not sure if it's falsetto or whatever you call it. Sings high, can sing high, but very very melodic, not at all punky, very not operatic, but more in the vein of, you know, like Bruce Dickinson or from Iron Maiden, or Rob Halford, who's a living god, from Judas Priest, you know, and the lyrics, the sung part of the Anthrax song was always very melodic, but the bass was quite punky, and the backing vocals were always like the Gumbies. Have a listen to not their first album. The first album had a different singer and a different quality to it, but the two first albums that I used to listen to of Anthrax, I remember being with a bunch of young guys. Only one of us had a car and could drive. I remember driving around country lanes listening to these two albums on a double C90 cassette, back to back, full volume, and he was driving fast. We crashed at one point and I had to pick up bits of the car. It wasn't a serious crash, just going up into a verge. But listening to this Anthrax stuff, and they wrote this song about Judge Dredd at the time as well, which got us all into comics, because I used to read 2000 AD and things like that when I was a kid, and then they wrote a song, and we didn't realize up until then that comics were for adults, or could be for adults just as much as for kids. So we started getting into things like Judge Dredd because they did a song on that. But all the backing vocals on Anthrax are Gumby backing vocals, which is kind of very punk. So what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? If you disagree, fantastic. I like it when people disagree, because you have more interesting conversation. Eh? If somebody just says, "Oh yes, I agree," where'd you go? But disagree nicely. What I find on YouTube when you talk about music is people get really rude and really nasty when you have a different opinion. What is the matter with you? If you come on my channel and play any of that malarkey, you'll be out on your ear, mate. You won't get a look in. You'll get a very terse reply, and then you'll be blocked, because there's no need for that. Be grown up. Only grown ups on it. Well, I don't mind young people, but grown up young people that can have a nice, pleasant discussion when they disagree. You know. And we learn stuff, don't we? You know, people point out things. It's like music that maybe I don't get, that I don't like. I don't get it because I'm missing something. You know, there's, there is a skill in listening, isn't there? You can listen in. It's like art. You can appreciate art, but the more you learn about art, the more you can appreciate it. If you know nothing about art, you know, I don't know much about art, but I know what I like. Then you're probably not going to like very much. But if somebody starts to educate you about art, you're going to probably appreciate. Even if you don't like things, you'll appreciate them more. You'll appreciate the work and the ideas and the concept that's gone into it. And certainly my ability to listen intelligently to music over my lifetime it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. The more I learn about music, but just through listening, probably better quality sound now. Listen through headphones. I'm being educated by people, YouTubers and things like that. There's great people around like Andy Edwards and Rick Beato that talk about music. Check their channels out. So it's great to have discussions about it. So please, if you disagree, please join the conversation. Let's have a chat. You might be able to tell me, you know, I might be wrong, you know, and I'm open. You know, I'm open to listening to music. I'm open to listening to opinions. So thank you for that ramble. Like I said, I'm not an expert on music. This is just opinion, not brilliantly educated opinion. Some of the videos I do are the things that I'm expert in. This isn't one of them. And let me know what other... Oh, I forgot one. I forgot. God. I forgot, really important one, actually. Kate Bush. Kate Bush, violin. She's got a bit of heavy metal solo in it. But some punk does have kind of more metal type solos. Oh, what a brilliant song. What a brilliant artist, Kate Bush. So again, if you're a younger generation and you haven't listened to Kate Bush, please do. Now, I prefer her first album, The Kick Inside, which has got Wuthering Heights on, which is, oh, shivers down the spine song. Now, Kate Bush, you've got to remember as well the era that she came out of, and she was only a wee, tiny, young, oh God, she was a slip of a girl when she first came out, really, really young. She was a child genius, really, a child prodigy. Not a child prodigy, no, she was a child genius. Precocious, yeah, that would be the word. And she put loads of stuff together very early on. I think a friend of the family or something like that knew Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd and sent her a demo or something, and he thought, wow, and he helped set her up. But you got to remember that her singing style, which is a very stylized form of singing, was completely different to almost anything that had been done before. Very different, her singing style. So she had a huge amount of impact when she first came out, including people that used to just take the piss out of her. You know, they were always, like, I remember as a kid watching comedy programs, and they'd do little kind of pastiches on Kate Bush, because she had this kind of, so it would, by people that don't like her style, it would be described as a screech and a warble. But actually, it's really good. I mean, I suppose the closest that anyone had come to that singing style before maybe was Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees, that I'm aware of anyway. Now, today, you know, people sing in a wider range of styles, I think. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think they sing in a wider range of styles. You know, both an individual artist singing in different styles, a different artist singing in different styles. So our ears are more used to more stylized forms, more varied forms of singing. But when Kate Bush came out, that was very, very different. You know, and I remember, you know, it was something that, you know, Top of the Pops in the UK was the big music program once a week, and you know, everybody would watch Top of the Pops, and the next day at school, sometimes you talk about Top of the Pops, sometimes, you know, most of the times you wouldn't, but very occasionally you would. And then I think there were 3 times when people talked about Top of the Pops in the playground that I recall. One was when Queen did Bohemian Rhapsody, I remember that. The other was when Pink Floyd did Another Brick in the Wall, which I think is Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 technically for pedants out there, and when Kate Bush came out. Now, I prefer her first album. I don't like all her albums so much. I think Violin is from the Lionheart album, which I like. I don't like it as much as The Kick Inside, but I don't think, I mean, you may not like, you'll like Kate Bush or you won't like her, but you won't, you can't go wrong, I think, listening to probably any Kate Bush album, because she really is a genius. Really is extremely talented. And Violin, and I don't know the lyrics to Violin, but I think it makes a reference to Susie and the Banshees, isn't it, actually? I think it says, give me the Banshees or something like that. And it's got these great lines like 4 strings across the bridge waiting to carry me over. And it's a punk song, you know, which we didn't expect from Kate Bush. That was a kind of a bit of a surprise. And it's I don't think it was a single. I think it was an album track. So check it out. Listen to Violin. So what were the songs? So Running Free by Iron Maiden, Sheer Heart Attack by Queen, not on the Sheer Heart Attack album by Queen. Boys Don't Cry. You have to squint a little bit with that one, but you'll get what I mean. And Kate Bush, Violin. And then check out the first album of Twisted Sister and the 3rd and 4th album of Anthrax. And listen out for those Gumby lyrics. So there you go, just some thoughts on music. But I want to hear your thoughts. I want to have a conversation. I want to have a chat about this stuff. I like talking about music. So join me in the comments nicely, and and we'll have a bit of fun, and I'll learn something. Even if I haven't said anything that's of any educational benefit to anyone that's listened to this video. I'm sure you've got if you're into music and you've got something to say, I'm sure you can teach me something, and I'm eager to learn. So thank you for that. Keep on enjoying whatever music you like, listen to the music you love, and be yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Ring your Mario.